Hey everybody, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and today I'm joined by...
Nerdarchist Dave.
And today we're diving back into deep magic, this time with Ley Line magic. Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So while you're down there, you can jump into the description and look for the link for Drive-Through RPG, where you can find our latest review of Deep Magic, which is Ley Lines. So, as always, we like to give credit where credit is due, and we've got one of our favorite writers from Kobold Press on the design with this one with Dan Dillon. Development and editing is Steve Winter. Art director and graphic design is Mark Rattle. Cover art is Marcel Mercado. Interior art is Marcel Mercado and Brian Syme. And then publisher, as always, the head Kobold, Wolfgang Bauer.
So whether it be in, movies, TV shows, wherever else, the concept of ley lines is something that's out there. And they wanted to tap in on this to say, this is a source of magic. Let's use it.
Yeah, I believe it's extensively used in the Midgard campaign setting. But there's no reason why you couldn't just port this right over to your own game that you're running, whether it's a homebrew or Forgotten Realms or whatever you're playing. And I want to say Dan Dillon did an excellent job of putting together, the rules for using ley lines and the different ones. I mean, so, what we get from here is we're going to get I believe it's a wizard tradition. We're going to get a couple feats. And then we're going to get the rules on ley lines themselves. And there's weak ley lines, there's strong ley lines, there's titanic ley lines. And then there's also the backlash.
Right. And so the rules, I think, in and of itself, if it's something that you wanted to add this to your game, I think, picking it up just for that purpose alone is a worthwhile purchase. Now, it does create the more work on a DM to be like, oh, well, now not only do I have to have a map, but I need to have the map of what ley lines are where. Are there secret ley lines? Just take a deep breath. You can put this in your game or not.
It adds layers. Like, one of the things in here is the Midgard map that kind of shows the ley lines and where they are.
Yeah, so now the map that they have is vastly different than what I had heard of or seen, with ley lines in novels, where they're these big arcing lines, not these, squiggly bits. They originate from a point and they go out to something. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a different take on it than what my experience has been, but.
Well, that's the great thing. You can have different takes. So, essentially, what you're going to do with the ley lines is you're going to get extra effects that happen when you tap into them. For example, on weak ley line effects, I'm just going to pick out one, and that is number 5, doubles the range of your spell, and there's 10 for each. And then on strong, treat your spell as if it were cast as one spell slot higher level. And then Titanic.
Casting your spell this turn uses only a bonus action. You still have an action. Now, on each of these charts, if you roll a 10, you get 2, or roll up, roll twice, or pick on the next chart. If you roll a 10 on the Titanic, you get to pick what you want to happen. So it's pretty impressive to be like, oh, yeah, well, my spell's area always is double in size. Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, and then there's also the idea that you could end up with a backlash, and that's something bad. Something bad is going to happen. You are incapacitated until the end of your next turn, which would be pretty bad. And then there's also the idea that if you're a caster that uses ley lines, you can actually set them so that it's not random anymore. You just use a particular ley line, and you're going to actually it's the same effect every time.
So that it winds up building your character is going to be based off of what kind of ley line he has found that he's connected himself to.
So now we get into the feats, and you get 2. There's 2 of them to choose from. For Ley Initiate, the prerequisite is intelligence or wisdom of 13 or higher. You see ley lines and can draw on their power. You gain the following benefits. You get an increase in your intelligence wisdom score. You can sense the presence of every ley line within 1 mile of your location. If you have a ley line of sight to the line, or if you have a line of sight to the line itself, it's visible to you in some obvious magical fashion. So you see ley lines, which is kind of cool. You can tap ley lines for their inherent powers. When you finish a short rest within 1 mile of a ley line, you can regain one expended spell slot whose level is no higher than the intelligence or wisdom modifier, your choice, minimum of first level. Can't use this ability again until you finish a long rest.
So I think that's pretty cool if you're using ley lines that characters are going to be near most of the time or a good portion of the time.
Or they're just really prevalent in your campaign.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good get.
Ley-Bound is the other one. You instinctively feel the flow of ley line energy and draw insight from it. Gain the following benefits. Increase in wisdom. You have advantage on wisdom survival checks made to track creatures over land or to forage for food and water. When you finish a long rest within 1 mile of a ley line, you gain inspiration. If unused, this inspiration fades away after your next long rest. When you finish a long rest within 1 mile of a ley line, you can infuse your ley energy into a token in your possession. You can make a saving throw while you have the infused token in your possession. You can use your reaction to roll a d4 and add the results of your saving throw. You can trigger this ability after rolling the d20, but success or failure is revealed. You can't use this ability again until you finish a long rest.
So it's a little minor magic item.
And it's also kind of cool because this one feels useful even if you're not a spellcaster, but like you're just in tune with ley lines and like the magic in the earth itself. So I kind of like that feel, especially if you're trying to build, say you're building a fighter character and you're using all those feats you get to take magic type skills like Magic Initiate, Spell Sniper, Ritual Caster, and then you could take that as well. So it would really change how that character would look and perform in the game.
So then we move on to the Arcane tradition, Geomancy. And just like with always, you get the Savant. Golden time spent for ley line spells is halved. Additionally, you can sense the presence of ley lines within 1 mile. As an action, you can discern the intensity of the nearest ley line and the direction and distance to it.
So you're a little ley line Geiger counter, essentially.
Level 2, you also get Channel Ley Lines. Starting at second level, you learn to tap the power of ley lines to augment your spellcasting as described under using ley lines. Additionally, when you finish a short or long rest within 1 mile of a weak ley line, you can bind yourself to that line. You can be bound to only one ley line at a time. If you later bind yourself to a second line, you lose connection to the previous one. While you are bound to a ley line, you can channel the power of the line into your spellcasting from any distance as long as you are on the same plane. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
So now we're getting into a position where now it doesn't matter how prevalent they're in the world. As long as they're around and you can get to them every once in a while, you're going to be able to bring it kind of with you. So that's kind of cool. We have Ley Line Manipulation as your 6th level ability. When you augment your magic with the power from a ley line, you can reroll the effect of an unlocked ley line as a result of the result of a backlash. You must use the rerolled result. After rerolling it, you can't use a reaction until the end of your next turn. And then when we talked about you could kind of set them, the concept is called locking and unlocking the ley line abilities.
So Ley Line Adept, starting at 10th level, you can bind yourself to a weak or strong ley lines with your Channel Ley Line feature. In addition, you add your proficiency bonus to the ability check when tapping a ley line for power. That goes into, in order to use the ley line, you have to make an ability check, because if you don't, that's what can cause the backlash.
Yeah, so it makes you better at doing it. You're going to be more successful. And then we have Ley Line Mastery. 14th level, you can bind yourself to weak, strong, or titanic ley lines with your Channel Ley Lines feature. You have advantage on the ability check to tap the ley line, so you're getting really good at it at this point. As an action, you can lock or unlock a ley line within 30 feet of you. When you lock a ley line, choose one of its effects. The ley line will always have that effect for you while you remain locked. Once you use this feature to lock or unlock a ley line, you can't do so again until you finish a number of long rests depending on the intensity of the ley line, which is kind of a new mechanic that we haven't seen used this way, but it kind of speaks to how strong, how strong the ability is. So 1 for a weak ley line, 2 for a strong, and 3 for a titanic. So, if you're going to pick something like a titanic and you pick a particular effect, you better really like that effect.
So, this I think is a really powerful ability that they get to lock into. And honestly, when your DC is 10 plus the spell's level that you're going to have to cast using to get access to the ley line, rolling with advantage, your spellcasting modifier, which is intelligence for wizard, and your proficiency bonus, that's going to, give you a good chance of success.
You're almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
You'd have to double one to have something bad happen, but the chance is still there. So now kind of getting into the spells, I think we said there's 15 different spells.
Mm-hmm.
And, and they're very thematic and cool.
So there's one thing that I found was a little weird. Energy absorption, 5th level. It says, for the duration, which is concentration up to a minute, a willing creature you touch has resistance to acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, and thunder damage. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. But then it goes on to the next page. And it says, if you used it against an unwilling creature, there's all these weird mechanics that go into it. And I just am like, to me, they didn't connect. So this was one. I don't know if you had the same instance.
So I guess let's look at that. So if the spell is used against an unwilling creature, you must make a melee spell attack with a range 5 feet. If it hits, then the duration of the spell, the affected creature must make a saving throw with its spellcasting ability or with your spellcasting, I guess, ability whenever it casts when it casts a spell that causes one of the listed damage types. The saving throw fails, the spell fails, and its slot is wasted. If the saving throw succeeds, the spell is cast. Okay, so basically you inhibit their ability to channel the elements. And whenever they try and cast that spell, they have to make a saving throw against themselves. If they fail, they waste the spell slot and they don't get off. So it's kind of interesting. It's a different use.
All right. So I was thinking I was only looking at it from the resistance angle.
Mm-hmm.
I was just totally baffled when you go from resistance to all of this stuff to, it also is stealing the energy from someone else's spell. So that's a dual purpose spell then, and actually really powerful for 5th level.
So there's a lot of interesting things that kind of go along with just invoking the ley lines themselves with these spells, where you have to be in range of a ley line, but if you are, you can do things like Ley Energy Bowl. You transform an ambient ley power into a crackling bolt of energy, 100 feet long, 5 feet wide. Each creature in the line takes 5d8 force damage or half damage to make a successful saving throw. The bolt passes through the first inanimate object in the path, and the creature on the other side of the obstacle receive no bonus to their saving throws from cover. The bolt stops if it strikes a second object. So this is kind of cool because it kind of makes me think of you're either shifting or moving the ley lines, and I just envision a rippling beam of energy through the ground that comes up to smack your enemies.
So I looked at that one pretty heavily because I'm like, all right, it's similar to a lightning bolt, and a lightning bolt does 8d6. This is doing 5d8, so it's 40 damage max versus 48 damage max. Fairly close in numbers, but this one has the ability to ripple through a single obstacles where lightning bolts don't.
It's also force damage, which is it's very rare for things to be resistant or immune to force damage. Except for the Helm Horror looking at you. It's just for breakfast.
So I noted that part into it as well. So I'm like, all right, with it going through an obstacle and it being force damage, I definitely see it as being less damage potential. But I thought that was a pretty potent source.
Sixth level, we have Ley Whip. You cast it as a bonus action, lasts for a minute. It's not a concentration spell. Just you channel the power of ley lines within 1 mile into a crackling tendril of multicolored ley energy. The tendril extends from your hand but doesn't interfere with your ability to hold or manipulate objects. When you cast the spell as a bonus action on subsequent turns, you can direct the tendril to strike targets within 50 feet of you. Make a melee spell attack on a hit. The tendril does 3d8 force damage, and the target must make a strength saving throw. If the saving throw fails, you can push the target away or pull it closer up to 10 feet in either direction. Special, a Geomancer with bound ley line can cast the spell as long as he or she is in the same plane as the bound ley line. So, this is kind of cool because for a minute, you're going to just basically get an extra attack, do some extra damage. You can move opponents around on the battlefield, maybe pushing them to or away from your allies.
Or, into spell effects.
Exactly, because you're only using your bonus action to manipulate it, so you could be laying down other spells as well.
So lots of fun things. I do like that there are special options for the Geomancers. Under Ley Surge, a Geomancer with a bound ley line can cast a spell as long as he or she is on the same bound line.
A lot of them are like that. It's basically, hey, if these spells are going to be useful to you, even if you're not near a ley line, because you're going to tap into the bound ones.
Yeah, there's a ninth level spell called Ley Storm. A Geomancer who casts the spell regains 4d10 hit points. Like these little special things. It's like, all right, well, for the most part, you can gain access to these extra spells regardless of what your class is. But for a handful of spells, there's a nice little bonus if you happen to be the master of the ley line.
Well, yeah, and not only that too. Like one of the abilities that ends up being kind of weak is the savant ability, but at least you're giving other things as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, because once you get these 15 spells, where do you go from there? Like if for 7 levels you just take these, well, you pretty much have them all at this point, and so it doesn't become all that useful anymore, and they're going to be hard to find anyway. So, I love it when they give you that extra stuff in there. But this is something, even if you didn't want to use it as a player option, I think it would really enrich a game and add something on the other side of the screen for plots, adventures, and stories. So,
like, there was stuff that I had as potential background stuff that hasn't been investigated in my game, and as it always happens, there's always plot threads that fall away, and I'm like, this could be an explanation of what that could be. There could be ley lines, and that's why there's all this attention towards Griffengaff.
That could very well be. The question is this something you guys would use in your game, or using it in your game? Got a place where we can discuss it, and that is down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.